The Power Factor Show with Rick, Steve, and Caleb. Episode 34.
Gun Rights Radio Network has the best pro-Second Amendment, pro-gun rights podcast available on the net. The podcasts are absolutely free when subscribing using iTunes or Zune Marketplace. Or if you want, you can just listen from the website. Make sure you visit gunrightsradio.com to subscribe. Podcasting freedom, one episode at a time.
Brought to you by Safariland.
Okay, welcome back to Power Factor. I'm Steve.
I'm once again Rick.
As always. Today we're going to do viewer email and also the much anticipated and awaited for Safariland holster prize drawing. Now, unbeknownst to a lot of you, there's actually 2 holsters. Yes, 2.
Count them.
2.
But wait, there's 2.
Yeah. Okay. But if you call in right now, operators are waiting. You also get a... Actually, yeah, what about your trivia question? Well, we'll get there. We'll
get to that.
Yeah. Anyway. Okay, so why don't you start out with our first viewer email.
Oh, this is from Rusty in Belton, Texas. He says...
I wonder if it's hot there.
Yeah, really. I've ordered a tactical solutions conversion for my STI Eagle, and I saw where you, Steve, said the gunsmith fixed yours so that it would run on your 2011. Are you happy with it, or would you have gone a different route if you could do over? I can still cancel mine. And then here's a funny little comment. I hunted with a group of guys from Seattle and Idaho. As a general statement, y'all are crazy. I had a wonderful time thanks to them. Well, we hope everybody has a wonderful time thanks to people from Seattle.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about that tactical solutions conversion?
That's an interesting question. In terms of the machining that was done, the 2011 frame width is slightly wider than a 1911 frame width across the top of the frame. And the slide is actually designed to work on a 1911 and or 2011, but because of the fact that the 2011 is a little bit wider, it was extremely tight. So I had John Larson from JPL, who's been on the program before, and did the segment on open guns, which he builds, but at any rate, they had to basically machine the slide for me to get her to work on my STI.
Now, it's not really a slide. It just looks like the slide and clamps onto the frame, right? Doesn't the slide move independently
it
of that?
depends on what part. I mean,
the moving part is like a separate breech block.
Yeah.
So you're just trying to fit it to the gun. It wouldn't fit onto the frame.
Right. I mean, the rear part, which I'm calling the slide, does ride on the rail. So, I mean, it needs to...
The reciprocating part does ride on the rails.
Yeah, rides on the rails. Okay. And then the front part, which is the barrel, is...
locked into the frame.
Yes.
But it doesn't... The slide moves around it just like it does on a regular 1911.
Right.
Okay.
So... in terms of would I do it again, that's an interesting question, because the reason I bought the 22 conversion was back, a year or 2 ago, I guess 2 years ago, when primers were very scarce. I mean, I could not get my hands on reasonably priced primers, and for a certain period you just couldn't get your hands on anything that worked. And probably not really looking at it from the long-term perspective of things would eventually loosen up and get better. I was thinking, well, I've only got... at the time, maybe a couple thousand primers. I want to practice. The only way I'm going to be able to practice is to do 22 conversion. And I went out and bought the 22 conversion for my STI, which was a fairly large chunk of cash. I mean, I think it was altogether with the magazine, an extra magazine was about $500. And you can go out and buy a 22 gun for $500 for that matter. But from the standpoint that I was looking at it, I wanted something that would allow me to shoot, my lower frame so the trigger and everything else felt the same. But at any rate, so, we talked before about the limitations of 22 conversions and that you can't do the same thing that you normally would with live fire. In 22 conversion, you're really focused on kind of things you can do with one shot. So plate racks, where it's, ping, 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 where you're not really dependent so much on recoil, moving into a shooting position and firing your first round, firing around and moving out of a shooting position, working on trigger control, things like that are things that you can do with the 22 conversion. But when you're trying to do splits or double taps or multiple target arrays and engagements, things like that, the 22 just really doesn't work well because you're not really experiencing the recoil. In terms of cost of ammunition, I can reload full power 40 Smith & Wesson for about $100, maybe a little less than $100 for 1,000 rounds. For 22 ammo, you're looking at roughly $30 for roughly 1,000 rounds. So, I don't know what factory ammo would cost right now in terms of for 40 Smith & Wesson, but
$20, $40 a thousand.
Really? Yeah. So
no, $40 $100, $400
right. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm saving roughly a quarter by reloading, and then over reloading, I'm saving another third on that by using the 22 conversion. Well, primers are, fairly plentiful again these days. I don't think the prices are back to the way they were years ago, but
$100
there's gas.
for 5,000.
So, yeah.
If you get those nice Russian primers.
Yeah, I'll hold my comments back when I was saying they were complete crap, because now it turns out it might have been actually the strut of my gun causing part of those
There
problems.
was crap, all right, but it wasn't the Russian primers.
Yeah. Well, I guess the end-all be-all test would go back and try shooting some more of those things and see what they do. And I actually do still have some, so maybe sometime I'll load some up and do that. But at any rate, so would I do it again? To be honest, I probably wouldn't, because of the fact that I can get primers right now. And if I'm going to go out and do practice, I'm going to want to do what I would say a full practice of being able to shoot unrestricted rather than having to, box my practice into a particular, type of a mode or certain types of arrays or certain engagements or doing things a certain way. So, at the time it made sense. Now it really doesn't make very much sense. If we have a primer problem again or a bullet problem again in the future or whatever, it may make more sense. But right now, to me, it really doesn't seem to. So,
well, at the time, primers were scarce and expensive. 22 ammo got ridiculously expensive for a while too. I mean, the last time I bought ammo,
and difficult to find.
Yeah,
also.
The last time I bought 22 ammo, it was in a huge value pack, and it was back to a reasonable price. I don't know what it was, $35 or something, for 525 rounds or something. I think you bought it up at Kessel Rings.
Yeah, but when I bought that, I think it was like $18 for 550
anyway,
or so.
So the time immediately before that, when I bought 22 ammo, it was $10 for a 100 round box. And primers, if you literally can't find a primer to shoot, you don't really have much choice.
Right.
But that's much more than it costs to reload even 45. Not much more, but more. Let's call it more, as much as. And so, when the 22 conversion versus primers and stuff, for a while there was just really wasn't much of an alternative. in terms of it's cheap.
Right.
There's no cheap way out.
Right,
so.
right. Yeah, it's one of those things where, like you're saying, there's no cheap way out, and in some cases there was no way out at all. There was no ammo out there that you could go buy.
Right.
And you kind of had to do whatever meant you kept your gun running is what you had to do. And in this case, for me, you look at all the places that were selling primers, Grass, Powder Valley, whatever. Local places were completely out. Nobody had any primers, and it wasn't like that you didn't want to pay what they were asking for, and they didn't have any that you could order.
Right.
And in some cases, in one instance, I placed an order, and it took a year before they were able to fill it.
Right.
And I was looking at this, going, "Wow, if it takes a year before I'm ever going to get primers, I could, in theory, run dry and not have anything. So I better save my primers for being able to make match ammo, and if I want to practice, I better have something, and I better not be burning up my precious, few primers." So at that point, that's when I decided to go with the 22 conversion. But like I was saying, things are considerably different these days. So right now, I would say it really doesn't make any sense.
Here's a question from Rich, who appears to be in South Florida. He says, Steve appears to be the Glock half of your team. Glock's a very popular gun for IDPA down here in South Florida.
You don't like Glocks?
If there's a Glock half to this team, it's Steve. People new to the sport may be interested in knowing if and how Steve reloads for his Glock. He did make mention of it in your reloading segment. By that, of course, we mean the hand-loading segment. Possibly mention if he uses a conversion barrel that will allow him to shoot unjacketed reloads, or if he actually buys the parts to make jacketed reloads. Cost of the reload as opposed to the norm down here, and just... okay, so what is the cost to reload versus what it costs to shoot Winchester White Box that you get at Walmart? Once again, I really hope this works out for you guys. He's very thankful and happy for us. And we're happy that he's watching the show. He says he needs to get real holster and pouches. He thinks of Blade Tech or CompTac. Of course, if you go and watch our equipment episode, you'll get our info on holsters. But what do you think about it? Do you use a conversion barrel, or do you just load jacketed bullets?
No. For me, in production with my Glock, first off, my Glock is my carry gun. And And I've already talked before about what I believe are safe modifications to do to a carry gun, but that doesn't preclude anybody from taking the barrel out and swapping it with an aftermarket barrel. The only reason why you'd want to go to an aftermarket barrel, obviously, is to be able to shoot lead bullets out of a Glock. And if you're going to do that, we're probably assuming that you're going to be firing a lot of lead bullets out of your Glock. For me, my experiment with my Glock, I guess it was an experiment. I did a 1-year experiment with the Glock, so to speak, where I shot all USPSA matches using my Glock 19 because it was my carry gun. I wanted to become more familiar and get more trigger time in on my carry gun because at that point I was constantly shooting my STI. And then after a year, I switched back to shooting the STI again. So because of the fact that I wasn't looking at this as a long haul project or anything like that, I was perfectly happy just going out and buying jacketed bullets and loading that for my Glock 19. Now, if I was going to be a serious production shooter and shooting the Glock, I would probably really seriously consider going to a aftermarket barrel where I could shoot Molly or lead non-jacketed bullets. Just from the cost saving alone is significant. I mean, I think I'm running Precision Delta bullets, which are on par with the Montana Gold. And again, you're looking at probably roughly $100 or so to load 1,000 rounds of that stuff. You go out and get probably a Molly bullet or a lead bullet, and you're looking probably at about maybe $60 or so for the bullets for 1,000 of those, and a penny for the primer.
Probably less than that, depending on the bullets. I mean, I paid about $60 for 1,045 bullets.
Oh, okay.
So for 9mm, it's more like $40.
Yeah. So. Okay. So $40 for that sounds about right. So $40, 4 cents a bullet, 2 cents a primer, 1 cent for the powder. You're looking at roughly
pay off your barrel pretty quick.
Yeah, pretty quick. So and then again, that's like the good old return on investment of how many rounds do you have to shoot before you can pay off your whatever $150 barrel is. So at any rate, it's one of those things you really need to weigh on your own, deciding whether it's really worthwhile to you. But if you do plan on doing a lot of shooting and diving into production and sticking with it and making that your primary competition gun, and you are reloading it, probably really would be to your benefit to go out and get an aftermarket barrel and shoot it.
So what are the good aftermarket barrels for the Glocks?
Beats me. I know.
Throw some names out there.
Lone Wolf. I know Lone Wolf is really popular. They're real big on barrels. In fact, it seems like everybody who typically goes with a Glock aftermarket barrel is probably going to go with a Lone Wolf. So we'll leave it at that.
Okay. Thanks, South Florida guy.
What are your comments about
Glock barrels?
Yeah.
Well, after having the second one blow up in my face, I would say if you're going to shoot lead bullets, you should probably have an aftermarket barrel.
What happened with that recently? You had another unfortunate incident that you were not behind the gun on, but you were
I was observing very closely as I imagined the extractor coming out and embedding itself in my forehead. The guy was just shooting. It was an IDPA match, and on the last round of a stage, I didn't even really notice what had happened. I didn't hear anything unusual. The mag was on the ground, and all I thought is, well, he's getting a little ahead of the range commands. But it turned out the mag had been blown out of the gun.
This sounds awfully familiar.
And he pulls the slide open, and I can see a little piece of metal protruding out of the extractor slot in the slide.
Was it the trigger bar?
It was apparently a little metal plunger that pushes on the extractor.
Okay, yeah, right.
And so it's protruding over the ejection port. And I'm looking at it, and I don't see that the extractor's gone. But I'm thinking, what is this thing that's kind of sort of where the extractor should be?
Oh, it's very much gone.
And then he pulls the slide open, and you can see the jagged edge of the case where the entire rim had separated off.
Yeah.
So he's just got the cylindrical part of the case still stuck in the chamber. The extractor's blown out. The mag is blown out. Either he or people that he was with had a new extractor. They were able to drive the case out, and he completed the match. But I saw the mag on the ground with the round in it or near it, and it looked like he was shooting lead bullets, which are a no-no. And I don't know if that contributed to some issue with pressure.
Well, it can very much. Yeah.
You got junk built up around the origin of the rifling, and the bullet is
Or I wonder if it may have fired out I mean, if there was enough of a lead buildup or lead
Kept
ring
it
or whatever, it may have
slightly
been
out
out
of
of
battery.
battery. It may have,
Yeah.
because it can be done.
Yeah, but anyway, it looked like he was shooting
So-
non-jacketed bullets out of his
So
gun.
you didn't hear any abnormal when it went off? I mean, it just sounded
Nope.
like, normal any other round?
Didn't hear anything unusual.
Yeah.
Which is not, I mean, I've had squibs where there's a bullet stuck in the barrel, but it didn't sound unusual. Then I've had squibs that sounded like it was nothing but a primer, and there's no bullet in the barrel. So you got to be really careful with that. Any of those kind of, is the barrel exploded or not? Or
You know,
is
it's
there a round
interesting
in
because
there?
the other gun blow up in a Glock that you and I were witnesses to was Tom's, and he has a Glock 20, but he rebarreled it. With
At that time, he
aftermarket.
was still shooting 10 out of it, though, I think.
No, I thought he was shooting 40.
I don't think so.
Well, at any
anyway, it
rate,
doesn't really matter.
yeah, but
it's
at
still
any rate-
a Glock 20, a large frame Glock
Yeah,
rather than a mid-frame.
and when it went kaboom, the same thing. I mean, the magazine, the guts fell out of the bottom and all the rounds dumped out. And I first thought it was kind of a joke because I thought maybe his floor plate broke and all the all the rounds just ejected themselves out. But
Yeah.
until I saw the blood coming off of his hand and everything.
Well, then there were little bits of guts sticking out between the slide and the frame.
right,
Like
bar
trigger
and-
bits had blown out.
Yeah.
It was pretty nasty, but he was able to rebuild it. He got a new frame. And
Yeah.
I think the slide and the barrel, I don't think were damaged. So
Right.
those Glocks are tough. You blow them up, and they just keep on
They
ticking.
come back for more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's
anyway,
the Glock perfection for you.
exactly.
Right.
So now here's an inquiry from Kai. Kai said he shot
Probably
his
safe
first
to bet
match.
that Glock will never be sponsoring.
Come on. I've seen another gun blow up before. Well, maybe not. But anyway. Okay. Shot competition for the first time a couple weeks ago and enjoyed it. Never figured out how the scoring worked.
Yeah, a lot of people haven't figured out how the scoring works.
I downloaded a sample score sheet and thought I had the scoring figured out, but then watched your YouTube video, episode number 26, on scoring and strategy, and got confused. Well, apparently we're just not doing our job then.
Yeah.
If he thought he'd figured it out and then watched 26 and was confused.
Right.
Normally, we like to think that you're confused until you watched episode 26, and then you feel like, But anyway, so your video suggested that you may want to hit, this is referring back to a stage that we heavily dissected in the previous episode when discussing the value of either engaging or not engaging.
Oh, that discussion, yeah.
Some disappearing
That's
targets
funny.
and whatnot.
Yeah, right.
And he said you may want to hit the 3 metal activating targets and skip 4 drop turners because they will take too much time.
Mm-hmm.
I thought missed targets were minus 10 points.
Mm-hmm.
Are there different rules for pop-ups, spinners, stationary targets? And I think what he's missing here, and you can address it because it was addressed to you, is that you do lose the 10 points for not shooting the targets, but there's no penalty for not shooting.
Right.
So it is literally 10 points per target on a disappearing target when it would be...
Well, on a disappearing target, you are not penalized for misses.
Right, you don't get 10 points.
Right, so it's what you're losing is the points that you don't get by hitting it. So
Right.
in theory, any target that you shoot twice is going to be worth a maximum of 10 points. So for not shooting at it, you're, in theory, losing 10 points.
Yeah, and he says, I do know that no hits add up without limit, whereas misses can be made up. I guess if you're shooting at steel,
Right. Or,
it's just a time penalty. Yeah, you can miss, and there's no
Yeah.
penalty for missing
No.
other than the time that you burn up
right.
by not getting
right.
the hits.
Right.
Perhaps
Unless you leave a miss.
Right. Perhaps my question boils down to 1, are black hits into hard cover, I guess, and a missing hole equivalent? Yes.
Yes, they are.
And 2, do pop-ups and drop turners not have miss penalties? Okay, now, again, we're back into the realm of, are they disappearing targets, like what he calls a spinner, we figure is a drop turner. Drop turners often are set up so that they appear and then disappear. And if they're a disappearing target, there is no penalty if you don't hit it. But there's still the points you do not get if you miss.
The easy way to separate a disappearing target from an appearing target is that all these targets have to be activated. There'll be something that gets them going. So either going to be like stepping in a bear trap or pulling a lever,
Hitting a popper.
or more often than not, hitting a popper initiates the movement. And so the target starts this movement. If time went on to infinity, okay, and you came back a month from now, all right, let's just put it from that standpoint. If you can still see the target or the A zone on the target, it's an appearing target, okay?
Well,
After that month, you come back and you go look at the target and you can't see it, it's a disappearing target. A disappearing target basically is defined as something that comes up, completes its movement, and then is not available for the shooter to shoot at it. An appearing target is a target that comes up and completes its movement, and when it's at rest, is still available to be shot at by the shooter. That's what differentiates an appearing target from a disappearing target. So a disappearing target never has miss penalties. An appearing target, we'll strike that. Generally speaking, a disappearing target never has miss penalties. An appearing target will always assess miss penalties. The exception to that is a disappearing target has to be activated somehow, again, like stepping in a bear trap or hitting a popper or whatever. If you fail to activate that disappearing target, you get the miss penalties on the target, and you also get a failure to engage on that target. So as an example that we were talking about before, these disappearing targets were all tied to pepper poppers. If you didn't shoot and activate that target to begin with the pepper popper, so you effectively are getting a miss in the pepper popper, because of the disappearing target wasn't activated, you then get the failure to engage in the disappearing target and the 2 mics on the disappearing target. If you hit the pepper popper and get the disappearing target moving, at that point, if you didn't shoot it or do anything, it's nothing. It's the 10 points that you didn't get for hitting it. The interesting footnote to this whole entire discussion is that when we shot this course of fire at Northwest Challenge, they changed it slightly so that it was 3 pepper poppers and 3 activated targets, 2 of which were disappearing targets and 1 of which was an appearing target, because they were concerned after we had our discussion and other people were discussing the same thing, that people would try to game it, shoot the 3 pepper poppers, stop, and not go after any of the moving targets at all. So they decide.
So by adding an appearing
target, it forces them to have to
couldn't skip it.
Right. I, after looking at the stage, decided I was going to go for the whole entire thing. And you'll probably remember this is a direct conflict or contrast, I should say, to what my initial game plan was, which was to hit the steel, stop, and because I just didn't think it was worth it. The way this was set up, and I don't know if it's because of the addition of the appearing target or after seeing it or whatever, but I decided to shoot everything. I ended up firing 4 rounds at the steel. I hit the first one, I missed the second one, I hit the third one, I came back, hit the second one, came onto and I went left to right, came back onto the very left target, which was the first disappearing target, put 2 rounds on it, the middle one was rotating, put 2 rounds on it, and the final one was, which was now the appearing target, was rotating, and you only had to shoot it with 1 round. Put the 1 round onto it, and ended up getting all alphas, all points, in about 4.3 seconds.
So it was 1-1-1 on the steel and 2-2-1 on the paper.
Right.
Now, why did they... what was the reasoning behind that?
8 rounds? 7 rounds?
From a single view?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, so 1-1-1, 3, 5, 7, 8. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, at any rate... But the interesting thing with that is that some of the people in our squad were trying to game it by just going on the steel. Their hit factor was something around 6 or 7. By going for it, I ended up having a hit factor of very near 10. I don't know if I think actually somebody ended up beating me slightly, not by much, but at any rate. So it definitely was the way to go after that thing. And in reality, there was plenty of time to hit the drop turners and do all that stuff. I mean, it was forward falling steel. There was plenty of time. But it's kind of one of those things where you initially look at it and analyze it. It's interesting that one of the persons that did go for the steel and only the steel, I don't know if you recall before, but we came up with initial times on everything. Mm-hmm. We were saying like about 1.28.
Bogey time for when it would be hit.
And I think we said that we were trying to aim for 1.5 seconds on the last steel. Right. The time was 1.59. I'm sorry, 1.58 on the last steel.
And they just shot the steel?
Just shot the steel.
So... their hit factor was 30 or whatever. I mean, whatever we decided.
Well, wait a minute. Now it's interesting. Yeah,
15 points.
No, I'm sorry. They ended up. What we did, they didn't hit it. They actually ended up having to fire extra rounds. We said if you did hit it with the 3 rounds,
sure,
because they went blam 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 and they had some misses and they went bam 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 and then they stopped or whatever. We said okay,
right.
If you just counted the first 3 rounds, it would have been 1.58. So assuming all those 3 rounds connected, it would have been 1.58. Okay. For 15 points.
So somebody could have done it the way you described it, and it would have benefited them to do it that way?
Possibly, yeah. But it was a big risk. And again, we discussed it before. It was a huge risk assessment, basically, stage. You may get it and you may fail. So, but I thought the way I shot it, I had no way of going back and finding out what my third round would have been. But it took me 4 rounds to knock down that steel. But I still had plenty of time to get onto the paper. So
get your hits.
Yeah,
I think that's
right,
the conclusion, is get your hits. Okay. This is from John. He's so new that he hasn't even shot a match yet. He's in research mode. I can't seem to find the answer to the question I have. I'm wondering if Sure Sights is an allowed modification in USPSA production. I was thinking of adding these to my Glock 17, but I don't want to do so if I can't shoot in production division.
So the Sure sight is a really bizarre-looking sight. It's a triangular arrangement. The front sight looks like this part, and the back sight looks kind of like, well, the bottom part of your triangle. But when you put it together, it looks like a triangle.
Like a diamond?
Diamond.
Doesn't it look like
Sorry,
that?
Triangle.
Triangle.
Triangle like that.
Oh.
Right.
Okay.
Right. USPSA rules for production say, obviously, or any of the non-optic divisions or whatever, is that you can't have electronic sights or anything that magnifies or anything like that. But it also says that it has to be post and notch sights. So I'm presuming that the notch in this case, being the lower part of the triangle, would probably qualify, and the post, being the front top part of the triangle, would qualify. I mean, it's not what you normally would say is a post and notch, thinking a square notch and a vertical post or whatever. But I think from the USPSA standpoint, if they had to rule on it, they would probably say, yeah, it's a legal site. However, I wouldn't go with it. Looking at that site is way too busy, way too distracting. I think it would probably, not be the direction you'd want to go. A better recommendation would probably be the Savigny site that a lot of the people in production division are shooting. It seems to be kind of like the standard, and that's a black on black site actually. Variation on that is probably like something like a fiber optic front sight or something of that nature, and a traditional square notch rear sight like the Savigny sight or something like that. But I think the thing is that you don't want to have a sight that is very distracting, and to me that thing looks rather gimmicky. So
it's different colors as well as different shapes?
I think it was just all yellow or something like that. So,
okay.
It's one of those things where, somebody has come up with a design, and to the unsuspecting or unknowing crowd that are out there, they introduce something like this, and people look at it and go, oh, wow, that looks really fancy, or that looks cool, or whatever. But I think it's one of those things that you put in your gun, probably shoot it for a bit and say, I hate this is, I don't like it or whatever. And I bet if anything, it's slower than normal. Because your eyes just aren't used to seeing that sort of thing.
While we're on the topic of colors of sights, almost invariably,
Excuse me.
The targets that we shoot at are either brown paper or white steel. And most sights, whether they've got a fiber optic or dots or whatnot, are basically black. And then they might have some little colors to draw your eye to them, but a lot of people shoot plain black sights, black front, black rear, which of course provide a very good contrast against the brown cardboard and the white steel.
Right.
Well, I shot a match earlier this year where all of the steel in the entire match was painted black. And so
can't see my sights on any of the targets.
Yeah, if you're, it's one of those things where you plan for what you expect to see.
Right.
And then, you go to this match where they kind of throw you this curveball, and it's kind of interesting. I mean, one of the things is you've got your fiber optic front, which is nice, but that doesn't necessarily help you put it in a black notch on a black background. So some of these unusually colored sights might prepare you for oddball situations like that, because you're not dependent on this black on black.
Right.
But still, black on black is so overwhelmingly popular, maybe with a little dot of color from a fiber or something, but in general, just about everybody's using black.
Speaking of fiber optic, one of the things I don't like also is fiber optics in the rear. I like fiber optics in the front only in a solid black rear. And again, I think the fiber optics in the rear, I don't like rear dots in anything, whether they're fiber optic white dots or anything, because I just think that's too distracting. I think your mind wants to focus on the front sight, and you start putting dots in the background there, and your mind kind of is distracted or to a certain degree confused by that, especially if you're having trouble lining things up. So I would recommend staying away from that. Okay,
here's a question from John. Hey guys, another question. Having now watched all your videos, I'm getting...
You're only allowed one question. This is two. Sorry.
Okay. Did we cover John already? Oh, there he is. No. It is the same guy.
It is the same guy.
Okay, John, we're going to give you a 2 for this time. Hey, guys, another question. Having now watched all your videos, I'm getting the 45 auto bug. I shoot 9mm and don't currently reload. Like most people, my shooting addiction is subject to budget concerns. What I want to know is which of the 2 following options is more economical. Continuing to shoot new 9mm ammo, essentially factory ammo, or reloading 45 auto. I know I could also start reloading the 9 as well, but one thing at a time. Okay, again, as we covered in the hand loading episode, factory 9mm, when it was priced at $12 for 100 rounds, it could be argued that hand loading wasn't really getting you anywhere. Especially if you had to buy your brass. That's pretty close, especially if you consider your time you spend hand loading as free. That's one thing. But if you think about what else could I be doing, I wouldn't hand load 9mm if I could get 100 rounds for $12. But now 100 rounds is like $25, and that's considerably more, than what it costs to hand load 45. So if you're trying to economize and you want to get into 45, if you want to hand load your 45 ammo as an economizing measure to justify shooting your 45 or allowing you to shoot your 45 more than your 9mm, certainly, you're going to have to pay off your investment in hand loading equipment, the press and everything. But if you maximize your savings by buying in quantity and whatnot, you can get your price for 45 auto, and assuming you say you've been picking up your brass, you're going to be picking up your brass, so not including the cost of brass, you can hand load 45 auto for half what factory 9mm costs. Yeah. So I'd say, and then, or the flip side of that is you can shoot twice as much 9mm if you hand load that. You can go shooting twice a week instead of once a week. So hand loading is a huge economy. I suggest everybody who either wants to shoot more for the same amount of money or wants to save money on their shooting should start hand loading.
One thing that I've discovered here recently, I've started to get into shotgun sports, and I've always reloaded for shotgun. I started years ago, actually, back in the late 90s. I was very much into shooting trap and just started kind of getting involved in 5-stand and whatnot. But at any rate, I ended up buying a reloader for it at that time and have been doing a lot of reloading. It's interesting in terms of buying factory ammunition versus reloading right now in terms of shotgun, is that if you go out and buy what's called a flat, which is going to be 10 boxes, you can get deals on it for roughly around maybe $4.50 or so a box. I can reload at best, and I'm shooting a 7/8 ounce load. I can reload at best for around $3.60 or so, $3.60 a box. I'm not saving a whole lot. In fact, if you look at it, I can reload maybe 5 or 6 boxes an hour, and if you look at how much I'm making, I think the federal minimum wage is more than what I'm actually saving in terms of the amount of time that I'm doing on that. Right. So it's kind of interesting in that in metallic shooting, you can save a lot of money in doing your reloading, but in shotgunning, if you get the right deals and everything, I don't know why this is the case, but the cost saving is not there in terms of shotgun shooting or shotgun sports as it is in metallic. Mm-hmm. Now, it's true that I can go out and shotgun and create some really super ultralight, 7/8 ounce loads and stuff like that you probably really couldn't, or I don't know if it's available or not. I haven't bought ammo in a long time, but at any rate, that's one of the benefits of reloading in general, is that you can customize the load for what you're shooting, right. Not only from the cost savings, but it's interesting in shotgun, the cost savings, this isn't, the relationship is not there like it is in metallic.
Yeah. So, and of course, the largest expense in metallic cartridge loading is the metallic cartridge case. Right. So even if you're not reloading, if you have access to free brass laying on the ground, I suggest you pick it up. I mean, I at the range that I do most of my shooting, there's police that train there. There's people who aren't hand loaders and they leave their brass on the ground. There's been times when if I wanted to hang around the range for an hour, I could probably pick up 500 9mm cases. And that's just free money laying on the ground. So if you shoot an outdoor range where you're allowed to pick up brass, pick it up. I mean, it's...
it's funny because even as an example that, let's say you're not shooting 40 caliber right now, but the thing is you may walk into a bay and there may be, hundreds of rounds of 40 caliber laying on the ground, and you may not be shooting it now. One of two things. One, first off, pick it up no matter what. someday you may know a 40 and you'll be glad you picked that up. Or two, somebody may be shooting something or may have brass for something that you want, let's say 45, and you have brass that they want, and you may end up doing a brass swap or just selling it outright to get the brass you do want. Yeah. So, sometimes you walk into situations like this and you see brass all over the place, and it's like, I don't really have a need for this right now, but sometime in the future I can either use it to barter out something else or swap it, or I may end up with a gun in that caliber, and I'll be really happy that I did pick that ammunition up. So
pick up brass.
Yeah, pick it up and pick it up often. So. Okay.
So that's it. That's it for our questions. So write and call us and hit us with questions, and we'll of course make personal replies, but especially interesting stuff. We'll go ahead and do episodes around reader questions. So go ahead and send them in.
But without further ado, it's that time. Okay.
We're now
so here we go.
Now explain what it is we're doing for the viewers.
Okay. So we have just doing this here real quick. We have 2 certificates from Safariland for, I think it's the 5192 holster, I believe is the model number, but at any rate. So based all of the responses or all the people who have liked us on Facebook, past and present over the last month or so that we made the announcement of the contest or the giveaway, and also all the people that have left feedback on iTunes, either on the video or audio version there. We've taken all those names and put them into the list, or into a list, and I think we have, I think it's roughly 336 entries here at this point, roughly 300 or so from the Facebook, and another 36 or so, give or take, from iTunes between the audio and video channels. Okay, so we've taken all the names and we put them into, we're using random.org. We approve it and we recommend it. No, actually,
we have no idea if it works. We're just going to see if the
Random.org is actually a very interesting website. You can get random numbers, or you can apparently, which I didn't realize, you can take a list of things and put them in here, which makes it great for giveaways and stuff like that. So you're actually going to watch this live as it happens here. So we have all the names here in random.org.
300 names.
And 336 names. And here we go. The magic button. Look, my wife won. No. Oh. Okay. The lucky winner is
Rick Thurman.
So he is the winner of one of the certificates. And the second winner is
John Selbert.
Actually, it's Siebert. Yeah, Seibert. So Rick Thurman and John Siebert. I don't know if you guys can see this. In fact, let me see if I can. Oh, yeah, look at that.
Look at that. Oh, yeah.
So
I'd pronounce that Zybert if I were in the old country. But we'll go ahead and say it's Siebert.
Tough luck for Chad. You
almost
made it.
Yeah, you were close, Chad.
Yeah,
but no cigar.
Crank it up next time, and almost. So,
yeah.
Anyway, you can see there the it says 318, so I was off by a little bit.
Okay.
So there you go. So Rick and John will try to contact you, and if you don't hear from us, contact us. I'm not sure exactly. Loke here, who's running this thing, will figure out the details of that. I just know how to hit the go button. However, you had an interesting trivia contest about something or other.
Okay,
Talk amongst yourselves.
So I had like this little trivia question that it was kind of a two-part. Somebody said, just use the comment, just the facts. And actually, the way it started out is somebody used the phrase badge of honor. And then somebody else said, just the facts. And I said, okay, there's a movie reference. And so if somebody can get the answer to what movie is that from. And for some reason, people wanted to separate it into two different quotes. That badge of honor was a reference to L.A. Confidential, and just the facts was a reference to Dragnet. When, of course, there's a character in the L.A. Confidential movie who was based on the Jack Webb character from Dragnet. And in the movie, the Dragnet-like TV show was called Badge of Honor. And the key phrase that appeared in the show was just the facts. And so actually the reference was strictly to L.A. Confidential, although I can understand the Dragnet reference. L.A. Confidential was the answer.
However,
ding, 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 ding.
I would imagine a lot of people probably use Google to figure that one out.
It could be. It could be.
Yeah.
But movie fans would know like that. So.
Right. So here's a trivia question for you, and I'll award the brass figurine with bronze oak leaf clusters here if you can get this one.
To whom? Me?
No, to whoever can get this. So there was a popular radio show person who used the song "The Bear Missed the Train" frequently in a lot of his programs. So can you name that person?
What's the song?
The Bear Missed the Train.
Missed the Train.
The bear missed the train. The bear missed the train, and now he's walking. Yeah.
Okay.
So, yep.
I think that's a little more obscure.
But Google is your friend, and so
Exactly.
try to do it without Google.
Okay.
But some of you
Missed the
will
train.
definitely, if you're as obscure as I am, you'll pick up on this one pretty quick, hopefully.
Steve's pretty obscure.
So, at any rate.
Yeah. Okay.
Excelsior, you fathead.
Right.
Okay, so I think that
wraps up
covers-
this episode?
I think it does, yeah.
Okay.
So, again, as usual, you can send us email at powerfactorshow@gmail.com. You can hit the website at powerfactorshow.com. Leave us feedback on iTunes. That would be great.
Yes, do so.
Yeah.
We'll
All
be
right.
seeing you down the road.
All right. Thanks. Bye.